Hi, I wanted to tell you today about a new resource that is out there for all Minnesota teachers. I have my name's Sarah, and I'm partnering with the Minnesota Council of Teachers of Mathematics Minnesota Math Leaders Group. And this summer, we created a resource for you based on our new 2022 math standards that will be fully implemented in the 27-28 school year, related to Dimension 1, which overlays all the benchmarks in our standards. Dimension 1 are the 8 mathematical practices. You can check the YouTube channel. I'll link below in the description to learn more about them if you don't know anything about them. But what we created for the math practices, because the math practices describe the varieties of expertise that all of us educators, the adults in the system, are working to develop throughout the K-12 experience in our students. And so one of the ways that you can do and create these is MCTM partnered with Ben Orland to create images to go along with each of the 8 practices, is to really get to know them over the next 2 years before we fully implement and start thinking about them. For example, this is one of the images created for Math Practice 1, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. And what we did is we turned all of these images into postcards. We made a K2 version, a 3-5 version, a grade 6 through 8 version, a high school version, and one for educators, and one postcard for each of the 8 math practices that you can send to students or adults and tell them, hey, I noticed you using a math practice. There's a front and a back. If you don't want to use it as a postcard, you can just use it as the front of the postcard and print it out that way. I print them on cardstock, and with them is some type of little inscription that goes along with it. So for example, with Math Practice 1, you might say to another, to a student, you stuck with the challenge and found a way through. It takes real courage to persevere and do that. So I want to give you some ideas of how you might use this. Here's one idea. You could use these postcards to catch students using the math practices. What if we started focusing on student assets, and rather than catching them doing something where they're getting an answer wrong in math, we start catching them engaging in the 8 practices that all mathematicians need to develop to be thriving parts of our community. Idea number 2 is you want to catch the educators using the math practice. In fact, I would argue that it starts with us catching ourselves using the math practices before we think about how we're going to implement them with students. So here's one for math practice 7. It says, you saw beyond the surface to the structure underneath. Describing and using patterns is powerful. So maybe in a meeting, one of your administrators is like looking at the patterns in the data and saying something about it. You could send them, hey, I caught you doing Math Practice 7. And you could write a little note and slip it into their mailbox. Do we still have mailboxes? I'm committing myself, that's why I have so many of them, to sending one of these to some Minnesota educator or leader each week throughout the next year, because I think it's important for us to start seeing these practices that we've developed in ourselves. So catch the educators using them. Here's another example for Math Practice 6. Hey, your mathematical language and attention to detail, it elevates your ideas. It's why attending to precision is so important. So name where you're seeing them do these things. And then my last idea is maybe you just all the students and all the adults in your system, you select just one of the 8 practices and everybody catches each other just doing that one. And maybe because these postcard decks are adaptable, you could change them. Maybe just make a printable copy that is only Math Practice 1 and lots of different versions that people could send out on that math practice, or pick your favorite practice. So you can download and adapt these postcards. I've linked all of them below. Please share them with others. And thank you for being educators in the state of Minnesota.